wasn't sure if anybody got back to him. Obviously not.
I did. I responded to him.
Oh, okay.
It may not have been seen, but I did.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Am I ready to go?
I will give IT the green light here and ask that they begin recording.
Okay.
You're all clear, Mayor.
Okay, great. Good evening. Welcome to the regular council meeting of the City of Port Hueneme. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 6:32 p.m. We are here October 19th, 2020. We'll begin the regular meeting with a flag salute. Please join me. Can we get a flag up?
Mayor, I'm having trouble accessing that tonight.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and stand and we'll salute this flag here. Hand to heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are conducting this meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N29-20 and the orders of the Ventura County Public Health Officer Stay at Well Order of March 20th, 2020. The council chamber has been closed to the public and council members and staff are participating remotely to help play our part in minimizing the spread of COVID-19. The public was informed in advance of the meeting how to submit all public comments to our city clerk. The city clerk has compiled all submissions and those received prior to the 5 p.m. meeting deadline. Today were forwarded to the entire city council for review prior to the meeting. They will also be read into and part of the official meeting record. That's the standard language I read for every meeting. And just to clarify, we have no public comments for today on any of the items. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Council members Berg?
Here.
Councilmember Gama?
Here.
Councilmember Rollins?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp?
Here.
And Mayor Hernandez?
Here.
All present.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to inspiration. I understand Councilman Rollins will be doing our inspiration for tonight.
Yes, thank you. One of the goals of a thriving city is to encourage local community members to volunteer. Many of the fine programs and services that we have in Port Hueneme, the friendly city by the sea, is because of these people who donate countless hours to improve the quality of life for our youth, our disabled, and our frail. I label these volunteers as our unsung heroes. They provide community service not for a paycheck, not for accolades, but solely for the inner satisfaction of making a positive difference. You don't always see these people, but their dedication is vital. Tonight, we have 3 unsung heroes. Under the supervision of Anna Hanley, the Community Service and Recreation Services Supervisor, these long-term volunteers have provided hundreds of hours of service to our senior nutrition program. The Ventura County program, administered by our city since 2005, provides 5,100 meals each month to the frail elderly over 60, to people with disabilities, and most recently, for those who are isolated with the COVID pandemic. REACH, Recreation, Education, Arts, Culture, and Hueneme Board of Directors, has made a commitment to identify and celebrate volunteerism in our city. These volunteers tonight will be the first to receive a specially designed Reach Hueneme Beach t-shirt along with official city recognition certificate. I think we may have some of these recipients with us on Zoom tonight, at least I hope. But at this second, let me just show you the shirt that they have all now received. the Reach Hueneme Beach t-shirt. Each week, these three volunteers bring meals to over 100 residents. We want to thank you. They are Linda Kane, our longest service volunteer in this program, who's served over 12 years since 2008. Jackie Mann, who has volunteered for 5 years delivering meals, and Lynn Emerson, who has volunteered 3 years of honorable. And for an honorable mention, we have a new member, Susan Cabell. In the future, we would like to feature more unsung volunteers. It is our hope to encourage more of our local citizens to get involved and make a difference. Chrissy, are any of them within the Zoom right now or in the holding tank or?
Councilmember Rollins, there were 3 individuals that just had phone numbers, and I've admitted them. I don't know if those are the volunteers or if they are here for the Engie presentation.
Okay, so I don't either.
I do know that Anna Hanley gave them the Zoom link and was in great correspondence with them, and that several of them had committed to attend. So I'm not sure if, again, like Charles said, I'm not sure if any are available and online, but they were provided the t-shirts and the Zoom link, and we're hopeful that they called in to participate. That was a beautiful honoring of them. Thank you.
Okay. Perhaps if they happen to show up throughout the meeting, we can maybe do a quick picture Zoom of them. I don't know if that would be acceptable.
Thank you, sir. We'll keep you updated and let you know if we see any join here in the next few minutes or so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rollins. That was quite nice, and truly, those were are some of our unsung heroes. The food delivery has been so essential during the COVID pandemic and continues to be. So thank you for acknowledging them. I really appreciate that. Let's move on to agenda approval for City Council. I'd like to entertain a motion and a second to approve the agenda, please.
Mayor Hernandez, may I
Yes.
interrupt you real quick? Item number 5 on the consent calendar, we have one clerical error that we would like to go ahead and just pull that item.
Okay, so we'll be pulling item 5 of the consent agenda.
Correct. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Rollins?
Here.
Is that an aye?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Byrd?
Yes.
Councilmember Gama?
I'm here and I'm voting yes.
Thank you, sir. And Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
So the agenda is approved with the amendment to pull item number 5 off the consent calendar. Thank you.
All right. Our next item is the general public comment. Having been told that we have none, we'll move on to presentations. Our first presentation is item 1, capital improvement project by our illustrious city manager, Mr. Connors. You may begin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to pull up my screen real quick. Can you share that?
And if I could ask everybody to please mute their speakers during the presentation, I'm getting some feedback. Thank you.
So you should have a slideshow. There we go, capital project update on your screens. If I have an affirmative on that, I'll proceed.
Looks good to me.
All right, thank you, Mayor. One of a large component of our general fund is our capital projects, and we are almost a year and a half through execution of the 2-year budget. And I wanted to provide you an update with the focus primarily on the projects that are considered vital, and some other potential revenue mitigation strategies associated with capital projects when it comes to COVID, and the early assessments that there may be some financial implications, and we needed to have some response options ready to go. I'll also tie into the community benefit fund, since we did have 5 projects that were migrated from our general fund to our community benefit fund. I'll talk about some surprise or special projects, at least one, and how that impacts the rest of the capital projects. And then I'll talk on what we're doing to improve all those processes immediately right now, but also for the future. So when the council approved an initial batch of projects, there was a supplemental batch or a modification. So we have a total number of projects and right at 98. And then when you sum those up, we're at about a little over $12.5 million. I broke these down into 2 things. One is the department and the other one is the significance. When you originally approved those projects, there was only one, there was a vital, but when it looked at potential mitigations on revenue projections for COVID, I wanted to tier those into at least 3 categories so we could be a little bit more discriminating when we looked at what are our most important projects that we need to maintain and we needed to execute. And so that's why you'll see Vital 1, which is a severe risk to our utility services, our public safety, our infrastructure, our ability to respond to emergencies, and also critical communications and a variety of different channels. You'll notice that Public Works has a dominant number of projects, which makes sense because of the number of things that they do. And then Parks and Rec has 26 projects that were approved. Now, although it's listed under Parks and Recreation, we have our facilities as well as our Public Works that are executing projects on their behalf. So the real heavy lifters in this set of capital projects is really Public Works and facilities. When you look at the cost by allocation, you can see that at the top of the list on the significances in our Vital 1 programs, by and large, because they cost a lot more for that matter. And then when you look over, you can see that Public Works is a heavy lifter in terms of dollar amounts and their projects. And it goes without saying that they have the lion's share of Vital 1 projects. So throughout execution, which really picked up here this past January, we had a variety of different challenges, some internal, some external. On the internal side, a lot of our facilities, a lot of our infrastructure had been in delayed maintenance and limited preventive maintenance over time. But we also had some problems with the original construction that Gabby will talk to Ms. Basua when she goes through the Engie project brief. And the Engie project represents about 25% of our capital projects. So obsolescence and neglect really creates some problems in terms of identifying what the real cost is with some of these projects and what you have to do to remedy the delayed, the obsolescence or the neglect so that you can move forward with the projects. We have embraced 98 projects, the volume of which is something that the city has not executed in a long time. So our currency with just 1 or 2 projects, let alone 98 projects, is challenging of its own right. So a lot of folks that are not used to executing contract and project management needed to get spun up and learn, and we're doing that as well. One of the things I noticed was that in order to have a small staff, whether they're doing the work or it's vendor, you still have a load balance where we have a majority of these projects, even if they're contracted out, have to be managed at some level. And so the level of effort on our project managers and our engineers does not go away independent of its internal work or a contractor work. So the load balance and master schedule is an important part of assembling and putting together an executable capital project plan. I talked about the expertise, and we don't really have the tools that a lot of folks that do contracts and project management use, and we've made investments in both in tools and training and standardization as we move forward. And the last thing on the internal side is we have a variety of different master planning initiatives: strategy plan, parks master plan, IT master plan, as well as the general plan. All of them could potentially create different priorities, different streams, and different sequencing in current projects. And so that, especially on the parks and recreation side, that have created a little bit of paralysis along execution. On the external side, obviously we've been living with the virus since March of this past year. That's impacted our vendor network on some projects, supply chain, accessibility to long lead materials for some of these projects. And then we had to manage subcontractors, contractors, and our own crews with a variety shift in many public health orders. The Western region fires also impacted our supply chain, specifically on the Engie project when it came to the lighting at the Miranda Park tennis courts. And we also have a variety of issues with preparation and planning among our vendor core. And then there was a surprise, I'll call it a strategic surprise, but when we have a major issue, an emergency repair like the water line, we only have a limited number of managers that have to address it. So their attention is always going to be diverted, even though we do have contracted construction teams ready to go to execute the actual work. So when you look at execution on our CIP program, when it comes to significance, we have completed all but almost 40%, or let me say that again, we've completed or we have in work all but 40%. 40% of our projects have not started yet, and we'll talk about the vital ones here in a second. As you can see on Vital 1, there's only 13 Vital 1 projects. 2 of them are completed. And then several are in work, and there's a couple that we'll talk about on how we're going to resolve those. And at the total level, you can see that we've got 27 completed, 33 in work, and 38 that have not been started yet. And then when you look at it by department, it's the same numbers, but assigned to different departments. So how are we going to close out the projects that are still in work or not started yet? So we look at, and by the way, all these projects are planned and programmed and completed by the end of the fiscal year. I wanted to really talk about the Vital 1 and Vital 2 projects because those are the ones that have a risk component to them that is important, obviously, for the council to be aware of, but also the public. On the Vital 1 projects, as you can see, we have those scheduled to start either November on storm drain rehab at Evergreen, or the rest of the projects going through or starting and completing by June. The last 3 in the Vital 1, pedestrian crossing upgrades, water service replacement, and valve replacement. These are ongoing projects, and we have a dollar threshold ceiling, and we will be and have been working on these projects throughout our capital project execution window, and they'll be going on through the end of the fiscal year. On the Vital 2 programs, there are a couple that will start in March. And a couple of interests are on the park side of things. One of them is the Miranda and Community Center fumigation, and I'll talk about that here a little bit separately. And the other one is the Boca neighborhood area as well. So all the projects that we have in the capital improvement project list are going to be executed with a couple exceptions. And the only reason the Miranda Park one is being fumigated last is because of weather, but also some of the other things we're going to do with the facility there at Miranda Park. So with that project set in mind, there are a couple of projects that we've already identified that either are going to be transferred to another fund or reprogrammed. I'll talk about those real quick. So on the Community Benefit Fund, we've already migrated 5 projects over to the Community Benefit out of our CIP program. One of them will be the volleyball courts. We plan on executing that in January to be complete in April. Community center renovations, same time frame. The Bubbling Springs Park just closed about a week ago. And we talked about the structure analysis or the building at Miranda Park that is going to be executed in January. And the last one that was on our capital project list was a hot water pressure machine that was moved to Community Benefit Fund. On the reprogramming side, we've canceled 2 programs. One of them is a truck, very expensive truck, and the other one is upgrade for housing software. Both of those were found to be redundant, and we eliminated them from the program, saving somewhere around $85,000 or so. And then we have the community center architectural design under review. Again, not determined whether we're going to execute that or not based on our park master planning. Now on the Vital 1 projects, we have 2. One is the Bubbling Springs drainage channel. That is the reeds that are growing abundantly along Bubbling Springs. We have a $150,000 per year program to remediate those. We had problems securing a vendor. We'll have some short-term remediation, but that project will basically be reprogrammed to start next fiscal year in a new budget program. On the very important base water line, Channel Islands, Victoria, that is a critical or a severe risk project that's been reprogrammed, mainly because of the coordination required between a variety of different water agency users in order to execute that program. So that's going to be delayed, although we'll start with the coordination and design in the next 6 months. Mara Vista, it's a needed program, but that is going to, the gazebo anyhow, is going to be reprogrammed in the next year. We need an architectural design. We're going to wait till after we finish the windows and the doors on that building before we proceed with that one. And then the last one is the Miranda Park building, and that is going to await design structure analysis, and that will be reprogrammed into next fiscal year as well. And the last one is the Public Works Water Sewer. That's on the building at Public Works, and that, although a Vital 2, we reprogram that to next year. So that covers all of the programs, the 98 programs. Either we have cancellations, we have reprogramming, or we have transfers. And when we execute those options, that reduces the cost of those capital programs in all but the community benefit fund by about $66,000 on transfers and about $2 million. The big one, the 1.5 million program, is the cross-base waterline program. And so that creates an opportunity to avoid $2 million and capital project costs that we can't execute within the budget year, but it also provides some mitigation should revenue reductions in a COVID environment change the calculus on budget scenarios. Not that that's likely, but I wanted to precede our budget brief, which will occur at the next council meeting, with this brief, so you could see where we've already contemplated where we could find potential mitigations against revenue. We had a significant project that really consumed a variety of different managers, supervisors, engineers' time. I went by there today. They're compacting to do it to be ready to pour asphalt. It should be complete here, I would say, in the next week. By the way, Mr. Villapana is on the line as well, and he can answer any questions about this project or anyone's in Public Works. The CI impacts are really cost neutral. The reserves are there, and there will be agency allocation with regard to the final costs. It's estimated somewhere around $300,000. Mr. Villapano may have a upgraded number, but I talked about the real impact is the talent diversion, planning coordination, and in order to get this done, because it exists in Oxnard and because there is other infrastructure within that zone, a lot of coordination had to be and continues to be orchestrated by our staff. The only really city impact has been averted, and that was the elimination of one of two water lines to support the city and drinking water. Under the Community Benefit Fund, as I talked about, I just wanted to give a quick update. There's only 3 projects that are not in work of the 20 that were approved about 2 months ago now. They're distributed. You can see the majority of them are in the Parks and Rec or the economic and community end of things, really accommodating some of the COVID impacts. Of the ones that are not executed yet, but are being teed up, one of them is the annual Sister City Organization support. This has been a leftover project that was reprogrammed into the current fiscal year. COVID obviously has an impact on what we do in that particular area, so that's just waiting a little bit more freedom of motion to do more things in that program. I talked about the Miranda Park renovation structural analysis that's programmed for the spring. And the last one is really a seasonal one. That's the annual Cops for Tots program. Other than that, we've completed several of them, and the other ones are tracking. So as I described, in 2 weeks, Ken McDonald will provide our budget to actual and projections. I also should mention that on the 28th, we'll have our second, I think, Measure U Oversight Committee meeting. And these are some of the things that I want to make sure that you're aware of. In the current budget year, we talked about transferring 5 projects out, all to the Community Benefit Fund. We've reprogrammed 8. We've canceled $90,000 worth of programming dollars. And we've identified 6 programs that we could reprogram into a future fiscal year. Of those, 2 are vital ones, and 1 is a vital 2 program. Other options, again, should we have to mitigate, potential lost revenue, we have unencumbered, unexecuted projects, 16 of them that tally $1.1 million. We can hold off as long as January before we pull the trigger on those projects, but there is an option prior to January to reprogram those as well. We do have the Engie project, and Ms. Basua will talk to those. There is scope increase on that project of $197,000 to date, and she'll go through the details of that project after this brief. For the next budget cycle, a 2-year program, we know that we had to reprogram $1.9 million. And there may be some additional impacts that will bring in some considerations of how we design our capital program for the next budget cycle. Obviously, revenue assumptions will be the driving factor in some of those things, but also we want to make sure that we align our strategic plan, our parks master plan, and our general plan with the due regard as we design our capital projects for the next budget cycle. As you do things and as you learn from others and you're exposed to a variety of different things, we're learning lessons. We're applying process improvement through every phase of our capital projects. The first one is the strategic plan alignment. We had our strategic plan approved. That is going to be our guiding document in terms of priorities and principles. But we're going to have other documents that will inform that as we start to develop our capital projects over time. Cost estimation is a really big part of executing our budget. We want to be as close and have a minimal variation from cost estimation to actual execution. And so we have borrowed, if that's the right term, for county project processing procedures manual. That is the go-to document for cost estimation and project execution that the county uses. And it's been in existence updates, and that'll be our go-to document as we move forward in the future. We want to make sure that we add in risk features. We talked about obsolescence. We talked about neglect. We talked about delayed maintenance. We want to make sure risk features are included in our cost estimates. And the other thing that hasn't been done in the past is we want to know exactly what our labor costs us if we either have work content ourselves or we do the work ourselves. And then the bigger thing is going to be load balance. I talked about limitations with staff and partners for that matter, but it also impacts vendor availability. So we want to make sure that when we build a program, we can balance the load of executing that program over the budget cycle. And so long-term scheduling and planning need to be a key part of how we do that. In execution, we award a contract. It goes back to that project process procedures manual, but we want to do a lot of ongoing, deliberate program management training, project management training. And we want to do a lot of work in how we attack a risk when we put these contracts together. And there's got to be quality expectations as well so that we can hold our vendors accountable and make sure that we're great stewards of our taxpayer money. On the project contract management, training is important. Every week I review each one of these projects with our project teams, and we focus on cost, schedule, quality, and safety. The other thing that we focus on is communications. Communications between each other, between the vendor, between us and the council, but more importantly to our community so they know what the impacts are, what they can expect. Why is this particular thing sitting dormant? Why are these things going on? And we have to do a much better job on the communication side of our project and contract management. And the final thing is you don't know how you're doing unless you measure it. And so schedule, cost, quality, and admin time in order to make all this stuff happen are metrics that we're going to start or have started collecting and reviewing almost every week now. And with that, I will submit my entire staff to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. Let me get myself off mute here. I'm not on mute. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Connors? Thank you. Yes, Councilman Berg.
Thank you very much. Great report. Thank you, Brick. Question for Mr. Villafana. A rather popular project that's going on in the south part of town these days are the speed bumps that are being put in. Congratulations. Neighbors are saying a lot of positive things. Are there plans to investigate, look into more locations that speed bumps could theoretically be put in?
Yes, our priority are around the schools and senior housing. They would go in residential areas. We are looking at several other locations where there are schools, not on BARD itself, but off on the side streets around the school. That's where that would be a place to do it, because when the kids do go back to school, our big concern is safety around those schools, and that's the priority for our speed bumps. And then I've had a number of requests from residents to look at their neighborhoods, and we are doing that too. So
excellent. So is there a process, City Manager Brick, for our neighbors in the various neighborhoods to be able to contact the city to ask for consideration?
Well, a lot of them have been doing that over the last several months. And so through council mail, they've engaged me and other city staff members. Usually I revert that to Mr. Villafano, who looks at the particular area. And you know, a lot of folks are interested in areas that arterial, like Surfside Drive, and out by the restaurant. But because of the nature of that road and that thoroughfare, those are not targets for that. But people are doing engagements all the time with regard to their neighborhoods.
Thank you.
are there any other
Councilman
questions?
Berg. Anybody else have questions? Madam Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
I think Councilmember Rollins had his hand up, but
I don't see him.
Yeah, okay.
He's not seated, and I don't know if he's absent now. Do we need to indicate that he's away from?
I can hear you. I can hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Well, you need to move your camera.
What? Yeah, that camera's straight at me. I can see everybody else. I see questions on my screen.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
There he is.
Thanks. So thank you, Mr. Connors, for the update on this. It's always really good to know, because some of these projects do take a little bit of time to set up and to complete, and and make sure we check the box on everything that needs to happen. With regards to, I have a couple of questions. So with regards to Public Works and having the bulk of the projects there, I have kind of a recollection that we were interested perhaps in having somebody come alongside to help Mr. Villafana manage these projects. And although it wasn't necessarily identified as such, it was one of those open-ended kinds of opportunities for us, just because of the sheer nature and size and scope of all of these, that we knew that he had other projects that he was undertaking. And so I wanted to present that question to you. Is that still on the table?
I'll defer this part of this to Mr. Villafano. We have selected a water general manager, which will relieve him of some of his duties, so that he can return that time allocation back into teaching, by the way, in the construction arts of project management, and some of these other things that we have kind of limited bandwidth in. There's nothing like getting experience by other than through experience. And so we've been really using this period of time in order to really enhance our skill sets among those that are generally involved in project management. So we've got a very dedicated approach to training and mentoring, and using these as learning experiences as we move forward. And I'll return any other unanswered parts of your question to Mr. Villafano.
I'd like to just add is what we have right now is we have a very good principal engineer, Mr. Charles Cable, and we have a part-time senior engineer that we're going to be looking at getting a budget position for a senior engineer. We are implementing the water master plan. That's a long-range project. It's going to be taking up a lot of our time, and really that needs to be handled. I need to be assisted by engineers that have the construction management background, the contract administration background to handle that. So our water general manager they'll be handling the nuts and bolts of daily operations and assisting me. But because of the water master plan, I just cannot turn the keys over to the new person. It's going to be a team effort, and I'm going to be still very much involved with the water projects and making sure that we have a sound, safe water system and a redundant water system. So, but it will free up some of my time when the person comes on board. But we do have a plethora of projects that we're going to be handling, and that'll be absorbing a lot of my time.
Certainly that was the second half of the question too, is, you know, we do have that major project going on as well. Okay, thanks. And then two other questions here. So Mr. Connors, you were saying that some of the projects we're going to hold off until January to kind of push the button on go for. What do you foresee? Do you feel like 50% of them will be a go at that time, or 100%? Or when would you actually make that final determination when we get closer to that date?
We'll make that determination after we get our next HDL review, which will provide up-to-date projections for revenue. You'll hear in the next council meeting our actual budget brief on how we're doing. We expect a fairly large surplus actually going through the end of the budget year. So I don't think that's a real threat, but we want to make sure that we don't execute until we have a high confidence that we don't need to pull those projects back. And we can execute all those projects, those 16 projects, if we can hold to January.
So what you're saying is that with the update on the budget and a forecast moving forward, then we can kind of plan accordingly to what kind of projects we're going to then undertake the second half of the year.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly.
Okay. And then lastly is that I know some of these projects we've been working on and having on our, on our list for a long time, such as the bathroom doors for the women's restroom at the beach. I think we could really execute nicely for the community if we include quite a bit of communications, utilizing our new PIO and other things that we could do on our website and social media. And so I would really very much like to see much more of that, forward, hey, this is what we have, that's planned, and then going through the process to make sure that our residents really do understand the investments, where the money's coming from, if it's community benefit fund, the Port of Hueneme, where that money is coming from and what we're doing to improve our community. I think that's a really good story, and we need to tell that story.
I couldn't agree more. Cost schedule, quality, safety, and communication. Those are the things that we review. Our PIO, Ms. Medellin, is in every one of those meetings. So he's working science, he's working social media, all those types of things. But I will say that we have to get a rhythm with that, since it's something we're not used to as a staff, as a team. And we're starting to get our feet under ourselves with regard to the communication. And I'll if Ms. Basula is up, I'll let her address the beach bathroom. I know there was an ADA issue, and she may have an update there for you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
No, that's it for me,
Okay,
right?
Thank you. Yes, I see you, Rich. Councilman Rollins, would you like to go ahead?
Yes. First of all, Mr. Connors, I'd like to compliment you on your well-structured analysis of all these different CIP projects. It's quite exciting to see them move forward. With a very small city and a very small limited staff, my first question is, and the fact that we have a lot of deferred maintenance on parks and facilities throughout the city, is there any, maybe tapping on a little bit what Councilman Schnapp said, is there any kind of a way to perhaps hire a contracted project manager to help Mr. Biafano along in that, like, you know, maybe on a long term, we're not going to need to do all these projects, but if we're going to move through the robust amount of projects that we have in some kind of timely fashion, is there the ability to hire professional project managers that perhaps Mr. Villafano can just give kind of like, you know, supervisorial oversight, but nonetheless, they can be doing all the nuts and bolts to get these things moving?
I mean, that is an option. I'll revert part of that question back to Mr. Villafano. I will say that independent of either additional temp or contracted project management support, project management is something that goes well beyond construction. And so as a staff, the basic elements of project planning, project scheduling, contracting, awarding contracts, managing contracts, and all those type of things needs to be something that we all have at least a core foundation expertise and confidence in doing, and we'll get better over time. If we have the opportunity to execute a robust capital program like we did in this budget cycle, staff is always going to be a factor, and we have to be ready to make that determination if we need additional help to do that. In the current budget, I'll defer to Mr. Villafano for his thoughts.
As I mentioned before, we did hire a part-time senior engineer who's retired from the county of Ventura, who has quite a bit of experience. He's been very helpful. He's been assigned specific tasks dealing with picking up areas that Mr. Cable and I just don't have the time to handle. And then also he's been working with on a number of projects for us and assisting it. And that's how I've managed to fill the gap. But we're looking at possibly adding a full-time position. And as far as funding for the full-time position, there'd be very limited impact to the general fund, because most of our projects are enterprise fund, whether it's gas tax for road improvements, whether it's enterprise funds for water improvements. So the amount of burden to the general fund on implementing a new position wouldn't be that significant, because it would be funded by the water division or wastewater division. So that's what I'm looking for. And I'm going to be working with Mr. McDonald and the city manager to get that new position later in the first part of the year in January, when we do a budget adjustment. And then we could also need, if we needed additional help, I would just look on a contract basis with people.
Thank you. As being at that, it is a robust CIP program, and the fact that for many, many years we've had, as you mentioned, Mr. Connors, some deferred maintenance, especially at the 3 parks that we have in the city. My first question is, when is the Rec and Park Master Plan coming to the council so that we can kind of fine tune priorities, since there's millions of things that need to be done all over?
Yeah, our scheduling, and Mr. Stewart can correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking to get a council approval of the Parks Master Plan in December of this year. Okay.
And then I guess 2 capital improvement projects that I didn't see that I know you're aware of, at least. One would be the field at Miranda Park with the gopher holes, and the fact that it's really unplayable and unusable, and probably the sprinkler systems aren't working because it's brown. Where is that? I didn't see that in any of the different schedules, but I know in really bad shape.
Yeah, there were no, in this current budget, there are no Miranda Field capital projects assigned. Miranda Park has been a victim of COVID, and also projects and amenities on the tennis courts and the lighting, from not having landscape personnel to cut the grass, we stopped watering. And then when the lighting project started, the irrigation system was damaged, and then we stopped watering. And then when they did forms for the light poles, the forms had to set, and we didn't water. So we should restart our watering program there. That will have a major improvement, at least on the looks, and we'll get at the gophers as well.
And I guess the final project that I know that I've seen a lot of community interest in is the dog park. And I know where does that fall into the realm of everything?
Well, I'll tease the next council meeting. Mr. Perez will give an update on that. He's done a lot of research and to establish the requirements, and he'll provide a current update at our next council meeting on where we are with that.
Great, thank you.
Councilman Gama?
Thank you. Appreciate the update. And I do want to say today I noticed that the Engie project at the police station is humming along, and it's really nice to see a project that gets started and is just marching in lockstep with the plan. Today was a monumental day for that project, and it feels really good to see a project going very well. And you haven't told us that it's going very well, but I'm pretty sure that I've noticed that it's going very well. And today was a really good day for that. So I appreciate that. However, the other ones, you know, there's been a lot of delays and problems, and we appreciate being aware of that. And so my question is, with the Parks and Recs plan coming together, and I think we all agree that having a functional parks is very important to the city. And when I go back and think about 6 months ago, we had a $150,000 architectural proposal for the community center redesign, and we sent it back. And then it came back with a $50,000 architectural redesign for the community center. And I've been opposed to that because all our parks are in not the best of shape. Some of them are pretty bad compared to others, and including the beach area, there's areas that are in disrepair and the like. So when on the 9th page of your slide, I think you said that the community center architectural design is under review. What do you mean by that?
There were no designs. There were needs assessment, one for the community the community center, and the other one for the pier and the lifeguard station and the restaurant. Those were needs assessments, and design would be pending whatever we wanted to do. And that's why it's under review. We haven't executed that component of it yet.
So are you saying that the 50,000 architectural
needs assessment
what was put on hold?
No, that's a needs assessment. So that gave us 3 options with variations on recommendations on what the community center could or should be. Likewise, a pier and a beach restaurant had a similar needs assessment. That does not commit us to a design of any sort. We would pick out options, perhaps, you know, depending on what we want to do with the parks master plan, and then they make the appropriate investments at that time in design and then construction.
Yeah, and that circles back to exactly what I'm thinking is that, well, I think getting our parks to a high level of quality, particularly on grounds maintenance, so that they could be utilized by the community members, by the youth of our community. I really would hope that we as a council can decide. In other words, what I'm trying to say is I think we need to get the grounds maintenance up to par like ASAP, because it's been far too long that some of these areas have fallen into disrepair. So it just concerns me a little bit if we're marching down a path on the community center when we have other areas that are in probably more need. We talked about the Miranda Park building and also some of the beach areas. So, and then how do we have that public discussion integrating the parks master plan with the general plan with the strategic plan, and then the dog park plan, and so maybe we need to really take a step back and try and decide what is our number one priority, number two, number three, and so forth.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. All those things have to be reconciled against one each other to come up with an agreeable council-approved priority of actions associated with each implementation of those elements of those strategic parks, IT, and general plan.
Thank you, Councilman Graham. I believe Councilman Berg had a question.
Yes, thank you very much. This one may be for Ms. Basua regarding public housing sphere. Over in Mar Vista, on the slide presentation, they did mention Mar Vista. Where are we regarding the windows and the doors, et cetera? I know there was, we've been talking about that for a couple of years now, getting these windows resealed and the sliding doors, I think. Can we get, is there a winter's coming? Is there a target date to finish that up?
I could speak to that.
Thank you.
An RFP has been released, and the plan is to execute the door or the sliding doors and the windows in March to be completed by May of next year.
Thank you.
The holdup on that was a release of HUD funding, although it was allocated to us. We weren't able to touch it, and we decided to at least publish an RFP so that when it was released, and all happened almost simultaneously, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Some of them have been answered, so thank you very much to fellow council members. The Miranda Park Bridge. At one point, I understood that the CBs were going to do some work on that bridge. Is that still the case? Or is there assignment done? They've already done the work? Can you bring the speed on that?
That project was completed. It's Bubbling Springs. It's the Farmers Bridge there.
Oh, okay.
The project was completed, I want to say 2 weekends ago.
Okay. So the Miranda Bridge is then a different project.
Different project, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the cancellations on the that you had on your spreadsheet, there was a vehicle that got canceled and training. What happened to those, and why were they canceled?
Well, the truck it was determined could be shared between facilities and public works, and because it's not used all that much. And then on the Yardi software, the actual installment was executed in the prior budget year, so it was excess. So we're not losing anything. We just a little bit more efficient, a little better sharing of assets.
Okay, and then the unexecuted projects, were any of those vital projects? Where were they on your list of
there's
significance?
There's only 2 Vital 1 projects that are being moved, and that's mainly a coordination and a staff, both our staff and external staff, a bandwidth issue. The unexecuted projects in the execution for the rest of the year, those are already flowed and should be completed. Of the 16 projects that are potential holding projects, depending on revenue projections, in a COVID environment, none of them are vital projects. They're all wanted or needed projects.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have no more questions. Any other members have questions? Madam Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think one of my questions we were going to have Ms. Basua answer, and that was for the bathroom doors at Hueneme Beach for the women's restroom. Thank you.
Ms. Basua, could you talk to the bathroom doors in the women's room on the beach?
Yes, good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Temp. So with the RFP that Mr. Connors was talking about, the release of that, we also released it concurrently for the city. We are going to be looking at architectural in order to put the doors. I mentioned to Brick that as soon as we touch those doors, it triggers ADA compliance and might trigger other things with the Coastal Commission. So we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're not going to be violating any ADA compliance. So we should have more information for you probably by early January of next year.
Is it an opportunity to bring in Ms. Galvan from JPIA to kind of give us her thoughts on the ADA triggering?
We could definitely reach out to JPIA. I can talk to Mr. Peretz and get a hold of Ms. Galvan and see what she has to say in regards to that.
Because I know that she's helped us with some of the other projects that we've had. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I will make sure to reach out to her.
Thank you. Councilman Gama, go ahead.
Yes, Gabby. I may be wrong, but I think my understanding is that the entryway to the toilet has to be a minimum of 36 inches wide. And I'm not sure that in the boys and women's bathroom that it is that. And if it's not, then I think you're looking at a total redesign of the bathroom just to put the doors. Is that what you're struggling with?
Yes, that's what we're struggling with. We're struggling with putting the doors. We're going to take additional additional room in order to put these doors in, which is just going to trigger ADA. And like I said, my plan is to go out for architectural on this and to come back to you, hopefully in January.
Well, the one thing that that we may want to take a step back is that when were those bathrooms were built? Probably 40, 50 years ago. I'm pretty sure they're the same bathrooms when I was a little kid coming to Hueneme Pier. So it could be one of those, when you hear about NASA having a $13,000 toilet seat, it could turn into one of those situations because you're just wishing to put a door in, but now you got to reconfigure the whole bathroom. So why don't we just take a look at reconfiguring the whole bathroom? Anyways, those are just my thoughts. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the capital improvement project update? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Connors. Thank you for your excellent presentation. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item, item 2, the Engie's project update. And Ms. Basua, this is your presentation. So you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Good evening once again. I believe Mr. Peretz is going to make me the presenter. He just has, so let me share my screen. Okay, if you can all see my screen, I hope. I'm going to go ahead and give you an update on the Engie project this evening. If the council recalls, last year you approved a scope of work through the Engie project, which was close to $3.5 million, and it included energy efficient. It also was to replace the roofs, both in City Hall, the community center, and at Public Works. It also had to do with our strategic plan that was adopted in the 2017-2018. These are some of the projects that you approved. You approved the interior lighting, exterior lighting, street lighting, the shade structure and rooftops, HVAC replacement, roof replacement, and the new lighting system. As you can tell, we have completed the interior lighting. The exterior lighting is almost complete at 95%. The street lighting is almost at 95% also. The shade structure and the rooftop, we are at 70%. We're currently working at City Hall in order to be at 100%. The HVAC system at City Hall is completed and is currently working. The rooftops are also complete. And the new lighting system in the greenways is about 90% completed. This construction project has had its challenges. One of the biggest hiccups we've had is that we were unprepared. Engie was unprepared for heavy rain that hit us early in March and April, and we had excessive damage done at City Hall and at Public Works. Also, the other thing that happened as we were opening up the roof, we saw an excessive amount of damaged plywood and wood that needed to be replaced throughout. And these pictures that you see here are what we call the lower roof. This was an area of concern for facilities continuously throughout the years. We had number of leaks in this area. And every time staff went up to see where the leak was at, we were never able to detect it. When Engie came on site, we discovered that we had a roof on top of a roof. And as you can see, these pictures are what we found. After we took out the first layer of roof, we found another roof. And this would explain why we had so much damage in this area. This is what we call the lower walkway, which is between the council chambers and the PD department. And this is where the evidence room is located. These pictures here show the HVAC system going up to our roof. The other picture that you see is the new roof that is now complete along with our HVAC system. The community center. We also had challenges there. As you can see, that was the damage that was done to the community center for the lack of preparation for the rain. It was an event that definitely was really hard to swallow. The roof was, Engie was not prepared for this, and they did do a lot of mitigation. They have replaced all the ceiling tiles. They brought in air vents in order to move the additional airflow. So as you can see, the damage that was done by the rain has now been mitigated here. This picture here shows the solar panels. These are now working. They are live. They are creating energy for us. And as you can see, we also have our new roof. Public Works. Public Works, we also had to deal with some challenges. As you can see in the first picture, we have a broken beam. We were not sure whether this beam was existing or whether it was done in the process of construction. Needless to say, Engie had to fix it because, I mean, it's not something that staff knew about. So Engie did everything in its power to repair it as quickly as possible. This picture here shows the new roof up at Public Works, along with the skylights. All the 47 skylights were replaced, and they are all new. And along with the solar PV is also on and generating energy. Miranda Park. We encountered additional challenges here. Every time they were digging for the holes kept on collapsing, and we had water in the holes. One of these pictures, if you see carefully, you can see some water in there. We also had a delay with the cement factory due to the California fires. We had a 3 to 4 week delay. This cost us a change order, which was worth about $70,000. So in order to mitigate this problem, they had to install sonotubes in the foundation, and then they had to pour the slurry to meet the required soil compactions. And they had to work really close with the cement company in order to make sure that this was going to go without additional problems. And here you have additional work. or some pictures of the work as it began. And I just have to reiterate, during the presentation for the CIP, City Manager Connors said that the grass was dead, and it did have to do with the Engie project. We are on a watering schedule now. We anticipate that we will have the rest of the irrigation on this week. And I am happy to report, if I go back to the slide, that the tennis court lights are now on. I'm supposed to get pictures tonight in regards to how they look. So I will be sharing those with you tomorrow. We also did 950 plus retrofit LED lights throughout the city. Here are some pictures of the work that was being completed. And these pictures here is just some of the work that was done. As you can see, the first picture is of City Hall, and you can see how bright it is inside. The second picture down below, it's the water plant. If you look at the water plant, you can see that our lights are a lot brighter, and the lights in the back are from another building, and you can see how dim and yellow the lights are. And that's really a good feature because it's a security feature for our staff also and for our properties. Community engagement, and this is the last part of the Engie project. We have 2 programs that Engie agreed to do. That is now, because of COVID, has shifted to 100% online learning. One is the U.S. Green Building Council, the associate program with the Boys and Girls Club, and the other one is My Future program with the STEAM modules. I believe we do have the Engie team on the line today, and they will be able to speak to that program a little bit more than I can. And that's my presentation. And if you have any questions or comments, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Basua. Do the contractors the consultants want to comment on the presentation before we open it for questions, or?
Yes, please. This is Tony Lamino. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Hernandez, and members of the council. My name is Tony Lamino. I am with Engie Services and had developed the project and presented the project to you in its inception. Thank you for this opportunity to give you this update. And I'm sorry, my last name is Lumino, L-U-M-I-N-O. I guess through efficiency, we've cut off some letters. Yes, I just wanted to speak to the community engagement program. I think one of the highlights is we definitely had to shift to an online platform, and working with the Boys and Girls Club, and then shifting to online and dovetailing into their programs. But the first program that we're doing, really excited about, because our goal was always for a group of young adults to come out of the program with a tangible benefit. And that is, in this case now, a LEED certificate, giving them the training and the certificate, enabling them to do whole building audits. There was a law passed, AB 841, where buildings of a certain size need to be energy benchmarked. These students, upon completion of the program, will be certified and will have those tools to be able to do that work. It's not something that you hear a lot about right now, but for folks like us in the energy industry, that is the next big wave. And it's the benchmarking, it's the engine that drives all of the sustainable focus in the environment. I'd like to just shout out to some of the folks and the staff there at the city that have helped us out. Peter has been great. Mr. Villafana, thank you very much. But the biggest shout out to Ms. Basua for her engagement, coordination. While we're delivering this wonderful comprehensive program to the city, it does take staff time, engagement, and we just appreciate the support. Just one point of clarification. Yes, there have been some change orders to the project, but I just want to make it clear, those change orders were the unforeseen conditions. And we talked about that in the beginning of the project. It's unfortunate, but sometimes they happen. And those unforeseen conditions are those things that you don't know, therefore there's no way we could know. Things like 2 roofs on top of City Hall. Really do want to make it clear that, and I apologize to the city that we caused some leaks while the roof was open. We were waiting for inspections and decisions in some cases. We should have protected the roofs, but all of the remediation was Engie's responsibility. And we have remediated those to the satisfaction of the city and the city's inspections. That is, those were not change orders to the city. We have also changed some things within the city on other components of the project that in the spirit of the agreement, things that we've just absorbed in the price of the project, if you will. So we've made a few adjustments on our end. Again, not change orders, because the spirit is that we will be delivering these under a turnkey design build. But it's a great program. And it's, as you've first started talking about your CIP and all of the necessary improvements, now you have buildings where you have brand new roofs, brand new solar, generating, online generating and creating savings for the city. So we're happy to report, and soon the project will be done and we get to talk about things like, well, maybe virtual ribbon cutting ceremonies, which is would be a new for me, and but looking forward to that opportunity. So Mayor Hernandez, thank you very much. Appreciate this.
Thank you, Mr. Lumino. Does council have any questions for Ms. Basu or Mr. Lumino? I see Councilman Rollins' hand and then Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Go ahead, Councilman Rollins. You're on mute. You need to take yourself off mute.
I wanted to focus on the roofing a little bit, and I'm not an expert on it by any means, but I noticed that all of the roofs, even the new roofs, are flat. Are they drained so that water doesn't just sit on them and eventually get down, into the building itself?
Yes, council member, thank you for the question. They appear to be flat, but they are pitched. And in some cases, we corrected the pitch so there wouldn't be any pooling. And so there is all of the, you can't see it, but it is pitched to drains and runoff. So we don't have any stagnant or standing water, which, as we all know, is the cause of future leaks and problems.
So a follow-up question on the community center itself. I know I saw pictures that they replaced all the tiles that have been damaged from various leaks throughout the years. Also replace the upper roof, right? So that the next time it rains, they won't be leaking anymore, which they've been doing pretty regularly in the past.
That is correct. The community center has a brand new roof. Okay. Remember, Colin? And yeah, we should not have any more problems moving forward.
Great. Excited.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Rollins. And then Madam Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Tony, for this presentation. Well, for having your team work alongside our team. And thank you, Ms. Basua, for a comprehensive report here. I have 3 questions. The first one is, what about the electric car charging stations and what's going on with that project?
So we're currently working on that project. We just decided where those chargers are going to go. So hopefully, I know Kevin is on the line. He can probably speak more on when we're going to have those up and running.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we just decided the location of the EV chargers. So here in the following weeks, hopefully we'll be able to get those going for you guys.
And what's the ETA of having those up and ready?
I don't have a set date. The City Hall PVs kind of our main objective right now. But I can definitely take a look and get with Gabby and get you a date.
That would be good. I think that's one of the really exciting projects here because it would help the community. So that would be good to know. Secondly is on the solar savings and energy efficiency. Will there be a report that comes out that might be, say, 6 months down the road, 4 months down the road in terms of what we're saving? Is that something that is generated from this project?
Yes.
Yes,
This,
that is.
oh, sorry, Gabby.
Go ahead, Tony. I mean, and I can speak to this. Yes, that is something that is a guarantee through Engie that the city would be saving a certain amount of money a year. And if that doesn't happen, Engie will then be writing us a check. So I believe this is a yearly report that will be coming.
Okay. And then on the LEED certification that we're working with these young adults, or Engie is working with young adults at the Boys and Girls Club, will we be measuring their success? And is this more of a multi-year project, or was this just 1 year that they were working with one of our nonprofits?
And Tony, I will let you speak on that.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. This is, it is a one-time program, and again, folding in with and integrating with some of the programs that the Boys and Girls Club has already and providing us training module. We always do track the success, the number of students, if you will, who enter into the program, what the results are, how many students complete the program, get their certificates. And then we do track their performance, if you will, in that how does that benefit them? How has it helped them make decisions about their career or advance their career? We've had some students at the end of the program completely change their career goals through these programs. But that is informal. And the feedback that we get, we use to then try to shape these programs in other areas of the marketplace. But we'll certainly be reporting back on the number of students who go through the young adult training program, and then through the other STEM-based program. We'll report back to the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other council members have a question? Yes, Councilman Gama.
Real quickly, I just want to congratulate you. Third time's a charm. You had a rough start on the first two projects, and then it looks like you're finishing really strong, and it looks great. Those solar panels that are going in the police parking lot, and look forward to seeing them completed.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Rollins, go ahead.
Yeah, just a little addendum to what Councilman Schnapp had said. The Ventura County Air Pollution Board has grants for electric stations for automobiles. And so as a supplement to, if we are heading in that direction, a number of cities, Ojai, I think Ventura, have taken advantage of these funding. And I would hope that our staff would look into those to see if we can perhaps put them in other locations like the shopping centers and things like that.
Yes, we can definitely look into that, council member.
Okay. I have a final question. I guess this could be either for you, Ms. Basua, or for Tony Lumino, and that is the rain. In the presentation, it was noted that we were unprepared for the rain. And in what way were we unprepared? And what kind of damage did we incur as a result of that? And do we have a dollar estimate of that damage?
So I will speak on behalf of that. We were unprepared because the roof was left open. So we had an exposed roof. They had taken the roof off, and the contractors left for the weekend, and we had rain on a Sunday. We did incur some costs, which Engie will be getting the bill for on overtime. I did have staff I called in staff when we realized the roof was open, and we had staff on the roof trying to do their best to cover as much of the roof as possible. As far as the damage, we had the ceiling tiles that were damaged. We had the rug that was wet. At the community center, we had the fire alarm that was damaged also, along with the ceiling tiles. And that was the extent of the damage.
And do you recall the weekend, the date that occurred? Was that, it was a March weekend?
Yes, it was a March weekend. And I don't have the date here with me, but I can definitely get that for you.
Was there a rain forecast that we were going to get rain that weekend?
There was about a 10 to 20% chance of rain that weekend.
So
yes, they were just not prepared.
okay. We just gauged our bets that it wouldn't rain, that there was 80% chance that we might not get rain.
Yeah, I can't talk in regards to what they were thinking, but I can tell you that my staff tried to do their best to try to cover up the roof. The most damage was done at the community center, but it has, Engie has gone ahead and taken care of that. And they have replaced all the ceiling tiles. And they've done their best to try to remediate what the situation that happened.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have no more questions. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you, Ms. Basua. This is quite a large endeavor, large project, so thank you for your good work. And thank you, Mr. Lumino, also for your presentation and your work on this project.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, moving right along, we're now at the consent calendar agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda at this point because we have since pulled 5 for the moment. Item 3 is approved minutes of the City Council for the regular meeting of October 5th, 2020. Item 4, receive and file the finance cash disbursements for September 30th, 2020 through October 13, 2020. May I have a motion to approve items 3 and 4?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as amended for items 3 and 4.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll take item 5, the 2020 biennial review of the conflict of interest code for the City of Port Hueneme and city agencies. Mr. City Attorney, do you want to report on this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Essentially, every even number year, the Fair Political Practices Commission requires the city to update its conflict of interest code for people who have the ability to make policy decisions and manage budgets who are not required to file by the state. And so it's our year, it's an even numbered year. And unfortunately, the conflict of interest code that is put before you on the agenda is a prior version that has an incorrect aggregate gift limit. And so the amendment that we're going to request that this council read into the record is Sections 6B and 7E state an aggregate gift limit of $470. However, that number is incorrect at this time. It's been adjusted for CPI, and the current aggregate gift limit for disclosure is $500. So in essence, we're going to be asking the council to recommend that the item be adopted with the $470 aggregate gift limit changed to reflect the new limit of $500.
Okay. Thank you. Can I get a motion then to approve?
I'd like to move staff approval.
Okay. Second? Okay. Thank you, Councilman Rollins. And may I have a roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins. He's muted, but I saw the yes.
Yes, I'm following Mayor's guidance to me to keep this thing shut down, and so I have to keep on turning it back on.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on now to public hearings. Item number 6 will be the plan development conditional use permit number PHCU 869 for Cottage Urgent Care Clinic, address 563B and C, West Channel Islands Boulevard. The hearing is now open. It is 8:01 p.m. Give me a second here. Do any members of the City Council have any conflicts to disclose on this item? Okay. Madam Councilman Gama? Is that a negative, Councilman Gama? I guess Councilman Gama's left the room. Okay, let's move on then.
I had to get a drink of water, and I do not have any conflict.
Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And no public comments, I understand, have been received for this public hearing as of 5 o'clock. Is that still the case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I can't close it. We have before us a recommendation to open the hearing and accept all public testimony, and note that the hearing was legally noticed, but due to some delays in sending the mailed notice to property owners, it is requested that the council continue the public hearing for a date certain of November 2nd, 2020, City Council regular meeting. I need a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to November 2nd, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Burr,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. The time being is 8:03 p.m. Thank you. Moving on to business items. Under item number 7, we're under Administration Department. Item number 7 is the Grand Jury Response Cybersecurity Strategies for Cities in Ventura County. And we'd like to invite Aaron, Mr. Wiedemeyer, our Information Technology Manager, to present the report, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, council members. The item before you is a response to the April 17th Grand Jury Report regarding cybersecurity strategies for the cities in Ventura County. Staff recommends the council authorize the mayor to execute the attached response form. In summary, there were 11 recommendations provided by the grand jury. The city has already implemented 5 of those recommendations. 2 of the recommendations are planned in the future as documented in the response form. And 4 items staff feel require further analysis, and I'm going to briefly discuss those 4 items with you. Response item number 2 regards the naming for city websites to follow the California Department of Technology Domain Name Taxonomy Guide. The city established their web presence in approximately 2002. I think that may have predated my time here with the city, but they utilized the existing guides for naming at that time. And during the ensuing years, the public has become accustomed to the naming structure that we use now, and is familiar with that context in communicating with city staff. Staff communicated to the grand jury that in the event the city rebrands itself for the 75th anniversary, we will then utilize the taxonomy guide for establishing our new web presence. Response 6 is the use of interns to develop a cybersecurity talent pool. Staff needs further time to analyze the security risk posed by utilizing temporary employees for critical security positions. The city may be able to use interns to support non-critical cybersecurity efforts, such as updates to our cyber and antivirus software on individual workstations, potentially some mentoring among students who might want to further their careers. But in the guidance that the council or the grand jury provided, they recommended this as a personal cost-saving effort. And with existing only 2 people in the IT department, we don't see a huge influx of new interns being able to reduce the current staff level to save a great deal of money. Response item number 7, staff does agree that vendors should maintain cybersecurity documentation, but we need some further analysis to determine whether using the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, acronym typically listed as CISA, would be detrimental in selecting and implementing future projects in a timely fashion. Other than that, again, we do agree that it is a good practice to have cybersecurity documentation from our existing vendors. And then response item 8 is specific to the budget process. And the current IT budget is represented primarily under the general city government section. In conjunction with the next budget cycle, as well as our next cost allocation plan, staff will investigate restructuring the budget to isolate IT functions from other city expenses within that budget documentation. That primarily concludes my briefing. I'm available to answer any questions from the council at this point.
Hey, any questions for Mr. Wiedemeyer from council? I see Madam Mayor Pro Tem's hand first. You go ahead, please. Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, for this presentation. Sorry, my internet is kind of unstable. So I'm going to turn off my video. Maybe that'll help.
Okay.
All right. So with regards to the information that that we saw in the report here and the considerations of some of these items, they refer to us looking to the companies that we contract with to make sure that they have cybersecurity insurance. I'm thinking that overall we do with JPIA and what they cover us in terms of liability. So they're actually then asking us for each vendor that we have to ensure that they would have that kind of coverage as well.
That's our interpretation as well, that we'll look to with our when the opportunity arises, like with new contracts, potentially with the existing ERP replacement, that they would have that. But the JPIA does provide cybersecurity insurance for us. And I am not positive, but I believe the number listed was $1 million insurance to cover expenses that would be required if we had to remediate some sort of cyber attack against the city.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we could look into that program and see like what it will cover and what it won't, and then, you know, go from there in terms of anything else that we would need. They would be a really good resource for us.
Yeah, and again, we agree with the need additionally to have our vendors so that if they are supporting or hosting some information for us, again, like with our current ERP system, it does not, the servers do not reside here at the city. They're hosted in Atlanta and St. Mary's, Florida, so that they maintain for their infrastructure equivalent or at least some documented insurance to prevent remediate the cybersecurity attack were they to happen.
Okay.
Aaron, I'll add, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll just add, you're absolutely correct. We do currently have first party and third party cybersecurity coverage through the JPIA. The effort here is just to transfer the risk to the contracted vendor by requiring them to carry cyber-related insurance, so that in the event of some type of breach or loss, the coverage would be on the third-party vendor as opposed to the city's insurance coverage.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Whittemire or for Mr. Peretz? I have a question regarding our future readiness for cyber attacks and malicious malware attacks. I heard earlier in the meeting that we have an IT needs assessment plan. Is that something that this will become a part of?
There will be hopefully that would be a big portion of what we're going to review. We do have in place updated firewalls. Next generation firewalls is the technological or trade term that's used for those, that provide a great deal of protection. We have multiple layers that I continue to add to. Just this week I added from one of the resources referenced in the group, the grand jury report, where we now filter our DNS requests. So these third parties maintain an extensive list that they're updating 24/7, 365 of known bad actor addresses in the cyberspace. And if we make a request to one of those addresses now, they're pre-filtered. And if it's to a known bad address, we don't even finish the connection. And so that's either redirected to where the person can say, no, I really meant to go to that particular website. Potentially a detective might need to take a risk and do something of that nature. But for general use, it would stop the communication. And so if there are even a payload of some viral intent did get onto a computer system here, it couldn't reach back to the mothership and grab that payload and download it to a local machine.
Now that's encouraging to know. Now I understand the county won an award recently for their future readiness when it comes to being prepared for the digital age, or for now, to protect us against cybersecurity. And I believe they've got at least 2 locations where they store data, or 3 locations. They have on-premises, off-premises, and cloud storage. Are you telling us we have 2 off-premises locations, one in Florida and one somewhere else?
Our current ERP system, HGE, is run on servers that are in data centers that we do not own. We are listed as an ASP customer, so I don't have the servers here physically on site. They have redundancy. When we were evaluating the contract, I think 3 hurricanes in a row in the 2-week period that we were reviewing the contracts came through, and they never even had to switch over to their Atlanta data center. So we're rather confident in terms of that security, but they have staff there and levels of staff because we are leveraging those resources by buying server time as opposed to a server and software. And so we have a lot better potential protection, backup utilities for that kind of thing. On site here, we do have backup for both the police department and the city side in terms of data. And those are archived on a monthly basis. And I take them over to the community center for our offsite storage so that if something were to physically happen to City Hall here for some reason, hopefully the community center would survive, and then we'd be able to restore. And new devices that we're putting in place to keep up with the police department include an option to go to the cloud as a third option for a backup location.
Okay.
Mayor, and I would just add to that, Mayor, in response to the first comment that you made, we are about to embark upon an information technology master plan.
Oh, great. Okay.
And we do envision that one of the tasks that will be a product of that effort will be an analysis of our backup options or storage options, how and and where we are backing up and storing data.
Great. And our security options as well?
That will be analyzed as well, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And again, part of what we're anticipating under the IT master plan is it's a 3 to 5 year plan that will include best practices on how often do we replace those devices, what procedures do we put in place to make sure that they are consistently protecting the city from cyber attack.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else before I let these gentlemen go? Okay. Mr. Whittemire, thank you so much for all your work. We rarely get to see you before City Council, so thank you. It's good to see you. Thank you for your work and your report. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Peretz, as well. All right, moving on. We are going to, where did I do my agenda?
Excuse me, Mayor. If we can go ahead and take a roll call vote on authorizing you to execute that response for the grant.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah, we need a motion.
Yeah, a motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion to
I'll second that.
the letter going to the grand jury with the response. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapps,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is the Brown Act Government Code, Section 54950, overview and agenda setting. And the recommendation is for the City Council to review the materials provided herein for the purpose of discussion and directing staff to prepare and/or adopt a council policy and procedures manual or a policy relating to the agendizing of items of importance to the City Council, individual council members, and/or members of the public. And I understand our city attorney will be presenting this item. Mr. Spalding, are you there?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am here.
Thank you.
So the impetus for this agenda item stems from our last regular meeting on October 5th, where there was a request made to discuss how items that are requested by individual council members actually make it onto the agenda, and what the Brown Act and what the actual state law says about how the agenda is produced and made. Unfortunately, the Brown Act is pretty silent as to how the agenda is made or how particular items are selected. What most municipalities do, and most of the municipalities with whom I've worked, have an agenda policy, or more robustly, a council policies and procedures manual that governs a whole series of things relating to the meeting, relating to council members' conduct and communications with staff, and then going through the city manager and whatnot. And so I thought it was important to perhaps broach this issue with the council in an effort to give the council a little bit more control and input as far as what goes into the agendas and how to get items of interest to the agenda. Councilmember Gama?
Yes, thank you for the material. So a basic question I have is, would it be possible to have this agenda setting as, say, the second to the last item of every meeting? And let's say that I wanted to suggest that we have topic A on the next agenda, and then we could have a little discussion, and if my colleagues agree, or by a majority, then that item would be on the agenda. Do cities do that? Do some cities do that?
Cities do that, but the problem would come with the discussion. There can be no substantive discussion because the item that was presented by you as a motion to have on the next agenda has not itself been agendized. So I would be comfortable with having something where, let's say Councilmember Gama makes a recommendation to have item A on the agenda. I would be comfortable with a second and a roll call vote immediate, but no discussion as to that item.
Are you suggesting that for every item that we recommend, or just items where there might be some, there's got to be a threshold upon which we would vote for an item to be on an agenda? And if I read the materials correctly, it sounds that if the item proposed is going to entail a large amount of time and commitment from city staff, then that would be something we would have to deliberate and then vote on. Is that your understanding also? Am I reading?
That could be the way that it works. Typically, we could have that conversation. It would be difficult to do it at an agenda setting meeting, but the real problem comes in the fact that if we want to talk about, I'm trying to think of something that would be like that. Like, okay, so for example, using the conversation tonight regarding ADA compliance and the bathroom upgrades, that, as you guys can see, that creates a whole host of other issues that members of the public have not been told were going to be discussed. And many people throughout the city would probably want to be heard on that topic. And so getting into those issues, the main problem I would see with this is that we can't have that discussion during the agenda setting item. To the extent that it causes or obligates staff to spend a lot of time and whatnot on the issue, I think that's something staff or the city manager can provide to the council at the time, so long as we're not having substantive conversations on the item. So for example, Councilmember Gama wants item A, it's seconded. Either myself or Mr. Stewart or Mr. Connors could tell the council that you guys do understand that this could take approximately 7 to 8 hours for staff to do. I think there's also got to be something that's built into where it might not make the very next meeting, but it might be something that's in the next 2 or 3 meetings. There has to be some discretion for the city manager and staff to properly budget and allocate time for those more lengthy requests.
Okay.
So I think if we build some.
Anything else you wanted to add?
I thought you were talking to me, but I did want to answer. One of the things you said was that my intention is to not get into a large discussion, but bring up, let's say, Pete Constant with RSI and unfunded liability research. I would like to get that on the agenda. Somebody seconds it, and then majority says, yeah, let's get that on the agenda. And then we may hear from Mr. Connors saying, well, you know, it's going to take about 4 weeks to get that on the agenda because of this, that, and other things. I think we'd all would be good with that. Same thing like dog park earlier. Like if I said, can we get the dog park on the agenda so we could hear from the public? And then there's a second, majority rules, and then Rick may say, well, you know, we're waiting for some more information. It's probably going to take 2 meetings to get that to you. That would be great, because then I think we would all feel that we're in control of the things that the community is asking us to do. And if the majority of us agree, then we know it's coming up on the agenda soon. So I think it's workable, and perhaps Kevin, you could tell us maybe a good example where it works really well, and I'm sure there have been some where it hasn't worked very well.
Okay, if you've read this document, there were some procedures for voicing your comments and being recognized. So we kind of went a little out of order here by having Kevin, Mr. Spalding call on Councilman Gama. So I want to give Mr. Spalding an opportunity to finish his presentation. If we could just do that, then we'll open it up for questions and comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're having, given the material that I've provided you, one of the reasons that I've put forth the council policies and procedures manual is we have a number of policies in this city that are unofficial policies. They're not written anywhere. So for example, not contacting city staff directly. That's not written anywhere. But that has been routinely since I onboarded 3 of the council members sitting on tonight's meeting. That has been the direction that city executive staff has provided. That has been the executive city attorney staff has provided. And we don't have written policies for a lot of these decision-making things. And so I can understand not necessarily wanting a full policies and procedures manual, but having one allows us to point at the rules and say, this is what we've all agreed to do. And it's open for revision at different times, but I think it would be important to have an actual hard policy in effect that we can say, this is what we've all agreed to do, rather than something that's a little bit more just an unofficial stated policy, the way that things just tend to work out. My experience in local government is that when you have something that's more a rule that we all follow, that's not a written policy, that tends to get bent and flexed, and over 6-7 months to a year, the intent of the policy doesn't remain. And so I think it's important to set a hard policy here and say, this is what we want to do. And the reason for this discussion is it's the council's policy. It's not staff trying to force its position on the council. It's entirely up to you guys what you would like to do. Councilmember Gama seems to have his suggestion, and it's up for discussion with the rest of you.
Okay, is that complete your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay, I noticed in the letter here, however, that there was a mention of the city's action tracker and the city manager's list of over 100 action items. Mr. Connors, do you want to speak to that and how that fits in with what we're trying to accomplish here by establishing a city council policy?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the things I thought was missing in terms of managing staff hours and time and assign ownership of particular items that the council and the public were interested in was the ability to identify interest areas, potential tasks, and potential agenda items for future council members. So we embarked on capturing all those elements. Every Tuesday following the council meetings, we review recommendations or inquiries by council members, and we assign a task associated. We also assign an owner of that task, and then we assign a prioritization. Then we assign a priority. I'm sorry, I said that already. Then we assign a timetable based on what the closing action could be, and then we track it to close. For example, one item is an analysis of the rate changes on our water utilities. That is got a long range closing date only because we want full seasonal annual data so that we can compare and contrast. So that's got a long time frame associated with it. Others are a lot quicker. Some of the actions are not agendized. Some of them are just reports to council on an interest area. So we review those every Tuesday and we add them. We'll have, I've got right now, I think I have 5 from this meeting alone. Some will be agendized and some will be reports, white papers, those type of things. So that's how we're processing it right now. So you're being heard, and then based on the priority, then you're being on an agendized item. Then you're being sequenced for future council meetings.
Brad, can you?
Okay, thank you. Excuse me.
I can't hear.
You can't hear.
Have difficulty hearing Brad at times. He comes in and out.
I'm sorry.
That would be a point of. Okay, I don't know what you missed, Mr. Gama, since he's done with his presentation. Did you miss the entire discussion?
No, I didn't, but his voice falls off and comes back, and
Okay.
we've experienced that before. So I maybe get closer. I don't know, but sometimes I can't hear, and then sometimes I can hear.
Okay. Okay, so just based on I just wanted to refer to the policy manual here on what Councilman Gama raised. So that would be known as a point of general privilege when you're raising an issue that would interfere with the normal comfort of the meeting, like temperature of the room, malfunctioning of the microphone. So this is in line with the Rosenberg's rules of order. So Councilman Gama would say, I have a general point of privilege I'd like to share. So we would then recognize Councilman Gama to indicate to him that he can't hear, and we would hopefully remedy that. So I just want to make sure why and how these policy procedures fit into the course of conducting a council meeting and conducting a course of business. So with that, let me go ahead and open it up for questions. I see Madam Mayor Pro Tem with her hand up. Would you like to go next, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Mr. Spalding, for your presentation. And thank you, Mr. Connors, for summarizing really just in brief how it happens, how agenda items finally make it to an agenda that we take a look at. There's a lot of background for sure that goes into all of this. And I think you're doing an exceptional job, Mr. Connors, for putting together all the items that could possibly be part of our agenda. We do want something that is going to be worthwhile to consider at the council, but we also would love to have maybe new ideas and opportunities come our way. So I know that we have a council code of conduct that's already in there. And so maybe it's what we need is to make some kind of adoption as to how we move forward with some of the new agenda items. And I would be in support of saying that, you know, if there's two council members that would like to have an agenda on future agenda, and it doesn't have to be the next one, but it could be based on the time frame that's needed in order to understand the issue and to come up with what would be best for the city to consider for policy recommendation, that I would be in support of something like that. So just wanted to put my 2 cents in here. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Rollins?
Yes. So if I'm to understand right, we're going to try to develop a system where if I had a proposed agenda item to be considered in the future, there's two things that happen. One is that we could do some formal vote to put it through. The other thing is that Mr. Connors assesses all of these information and prioritizes it. One of the elements that I would like to see is once it is prioritized, so that there's not a feeling of expectation that's unreasonable, that somehow maybe if there's a long-term future agenda schedule. So for example, like these items can show up on the next council meeting. These ones are planned for the second meeting after that, or the third meeting after that, so that we have an expectation as to when those things will be coming to the council, so that there's not a certain amount of, be it frustration as to where and whether or not everybody has been heard, to have those items being brought to the agenda. I don't know, does that make sense to anybody? Okay. The other thing, and this is just a little point, I was reading through all this, and on page 15 to 35, it says privilege of closing debate. And it says such a motion requires 2/3 of a vote for the council to pass, and is considered to require four affirmative votes. That would be 80%, not 2/3. And so I'm wondering, it would seem to me you'd only need 3 votes for the 2/3, not 4 votes, which would be 80%. It's a little technicality, but maybe there's a reason behind it that I'm unaware of.
Yeah, I saw that too. Mr. Spalding, can you comment on that?
Many of these are taken directly from Rosenberg's rules. I haven't broken out a calculator to do the math as to whether or not 3 of 5 is actually 2/3. I suspect it's just under 66%, which would require the 4/5 vote.
Right. Okay.
That's correct, Kevin. 3 out of 5, it would be 60%. Councilmember Rollins, that's why it requires the 4th vote to exceed the 2/3 threshold.
Okay, so then unless 4 people, the debate can continue on.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments before I get back to Councilman Gama? Okay. You know, while we're talking about agendizing items, I really want you to understand that this is a city council policy and procedures manual that we're considering here that has other items in here of significance other than just how to put in an item on the agenda. So I'm hoping that everybody's had an opportunity to go through this and is prepared to make comments on any of the content, because I personally feel it's very comprehensive, and I think it's a good idea that we have something in place. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're looking at this document as a whole and not just talking about how to put items on the agenda. And then with that, I want to go to Councilman Gama, and then I'll come to Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for that. And yes, I am reading it. And one of the areas that I think we're all guilty of, and I think perhaps I just saw you a few minutes ago texting, is it says e-communication prohibited during a meeting. And I know that we've all done it. I'll admit to it right now. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa, you know, we're not supposed to be texting during a meeting. And if you are texting during a meeting, perhaps that's subpoenaable and people could ask, hey, what are you texting about? So yeah, there's a lot in this that I think we all should familiarize ourselves with. And for me, is the issue of the relationship between the city attorney and the council. The city attorney isn't there for individual council members' problems with other council members. The city attorney is there to represent the entire council. So as I read this thing, anything that goes to the city attorney from a council member should be shared with all the council members. That's my understanding. I may be wrong, but you know, preserving the city attorney relationship with the entire council is very important. And we all need to understand that the city attorney works on behalf of the council, not on behalf of individual council members. So perhaps moving forward, we may want to take a look at all these rules. And like Kevin said, like, for example, I noticed graffiti the other day. I threw a message, I texted a message to Gabby. Technically, that's inappropriate because we're supposed to go through the city manager. But if I send the city manager a picture of graffiti, then he's going to send it to Gabby. So sometimes I feel like, well, maybe I'll just go directly to Gabby, fully recognizing that that's not the way we're supposed to do things. And so I think maybe this is a great exercise for all of us to review this and then make a commitment to these rules and procedures, particularly on communications between city attorney, city manager, and the city council.
Yeah, I don't see a section in here related to the relationship between city council and city attorney. Is there a specific page that you're referring to? Because I don't see it in here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it needs to be added. If it's not in here, maybe it needs to be included.
Right, but what Kevin said is I think he said it's a rule, but it's not written down anywhere. Well, then is it really a rule? You know,
it becomes, yeah. Well, I would imagine it becomes a rule when we adopt this as a policy. Right now, some of these are just practices.
Madam Mayor, I believe the section dealing with the council's relationship with the city attorney is on page 22.
Oh, I'm 1 page away. Thank you. Oh, there we are. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments? Madam Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So where did we pick up this document? Because I know that I've been on the council for 12 years and I've actually seen a council code of conduct piece like this. So is this what we already have in place, but maybe the new members haven't seen this? Can you give us a little bit of history about what this document is?
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. This document was authored by Charles Green, and it was put before a prior council when there were some hard issues facing this city with respect to hostile work environments. And many of you, I think, know what I'm referring to. And this policy and procedures manual was intended to try to curb certain abuses, council members' direct contact with staff and other items of that nature, and to put forth clear guidelines of conduct between the city council as well as the city manager and the city attorney and executive staff. And it was borrowed from several other cities and put together into kind of a cohesive, workable document that was intended to be all encompassing. And I do not believe this document was ever enacted. It was rejected. I think it was put before various city councils 2 or 3 times, which is why it still exists in a draft form. And I thought it had been put before this council in its current incarnation, but I may not be correct on that.
So you're also talking about how it addressed how and what the expectation would be from city council members with volunteers in the community as well. And you're absolutely right. It was done with the previous city council that there's, 3 others that are not part of this current city council. I do recall seeing this, but I do know before this was presented and updated by Charles Green, we actually did have a previous council code of conduct norms, and it was always presented to the council within the first year. So for this to not come to this current elected body within the first year of serving with 3 new members, it's kind of sad that it hadn't been circulated yet. I'm glad it's come up, and I appreciate then the updates that have been done over the course of time, and then looking forward to then this new issue. So I just wanted a little bit of history, and thank you for providing that.
A point of order.
Excuse me, I just wanted to add that, just to dovetail on Madam Mayor Pro Tem's comments, the council norms is on the website, and those were provided to us in the beginning as part of our orientation back in 2019. So
did you folks have a separate orientation outside of the council then meeting?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that. All right.
You weren't there so much. Because you were already oriented.
Because I wouldn't have been in part of that meeting. I wouldn't have been in that meeting, so I didn't know. So thank you. All right, perfect. Then it puts us all on the level playing field then.
Right. So, but this document is new. This is something we have not seen, but it seems to include some of that information. So, okay, Councilman Gama, you were about to say something.
What I was about to say is that we as a council have not adopted this set of procedures.
No.
So in my view, we're not all on the same page then, because we weren't present when the other 2 council members, Councilmember Berg and Mayor Pro Tem Stotts, the 3 of us had our dealing separately. So that's another issue. But so one of the areas that I think that all of us can could contribute on is communications from the city manager to the council. And I know that there's a section in here, and I know that I've been frustrated over the last several months with pieces of communication, finding out things on Facebook and not, so anyways, my point of order question is this an action item tonight, or are we going to review this document individually and then submit it back and then bring it back up and then adopt?
Well, my understanding is based on the recommendation here is that we were to discuss this, well, assuming that we all read through it, discuss it, and then direct staff to prepare the policy in its entirety for our adoption at another meeting. So I am hoping, and I think I trust that the city manager and city attorney are noting our comments with regards to what we're finding in this policy document and what's missing. I don't know if there's going to be any additional opportunities to make comments on this document, but maybe over the next few weeks, if we see something, how do we do that? How do we make additional comments if we have something we find in here over the course of the next week? We're reading through it and discover we want to add something or change something.
Individual comments, Madam Mayor, can be submitted to either myself or the city manager. The problem what we get into with the Brown Act is that you guys can't discuss it amongst yourselves. Mm-hmm. And so at the if the city attorney's office is directed or the city manager's office is directed to put together a comprehensive policy, then we will use your comments taken tonight and then try to put together a cohesive proper policy and whatnot. And any other things that either yourself or other council members feel like emailing to me or to Brad or to preferably either myself or Brad, those will be evaluated and incorporated or rejected, but we'll try and explain to you why we went the direction we did, and then put this document, a draft document, in front of council where there will be more opportunity for discussion. A resolution would be the only thing necessary to pass this document. It's not a law. And so it wouldn't be like an ordinance where second reading discussion is limited.
Okay. All right, Councilman Rollins?
Yeah, this may be a Rosenberg rule, I'm not sure, but I was looking at page 16 of 35, and it says that a speaker may not be required, a member of the public, this is dealing with members of the public. A speaker may not be required to submit a card or even identify themselves before speaking. In the many years that I've looked at council meetings, that's never been the case. They may not fill out a card, but they still announce who they are and what they're going to talk about.
Councilmember Rollins, that's a Brown Act requirement. You are not allowed to require them to disclose their identity. They are free to make a public comment without disclosing their identity.
Okay.
It's voluntary, essentially.
Yeah. All right. Comments limited to residents of Port Hueneme?
Nope, I don't even believe they're limited to residents of this country. Anyone may make a public comment. Everyone has free speech rights.
It's kind of interesting because I know Zoom changes everything, and however, when you come to a city council meeting in the chambers, you're asked to fill out a form and you're asked to provide your address, phone number, email.
They don't have to do it.
Yeah, they don't.
And some have refused.
Right, but I don't think it says on there that this is voluntary. It just, because everybody that I know that ever wanted to speak had to fill out a card and is directed to fill out a card.
Councilman Berg?
Yeah, we asked them to fill out a card. It's not mandatory, but they are being requested to do so for the sake of the record. And the minutes for that meeting. And the next meeting, we can see who addressed what. And so it's informational. And that's all that is. Yes, they don't have to do it.
And if I might add in also, excuse me, Madam Mayor, it's also for follow-up purposes, because many times if we take a report or they have, some issue that we would like to be able to follow up with them after the meeting, it's really helpful for us to have their contact information. So it is definitely not a mandatory requirement for them to fill out the contact card.
Okay. Councilman Rollins?
So is this a city Brown Act? Like I'm just looking at the state and federal, like somebody comes and speaks before the Senate and says, I'm not going to tell you who I am, and I'm just going to talk, and I could be from wherever. But I gather that's the rule.
Councilmember Rollins, the Brown Act only applies to local agencies in California. There is a separate statute, I'm blanking on the name of it right now, that applies to the California legislature, and the federal law has an entirely different set of rules. The Brown Act only applies to special districts, cities, counties, and other local agencies.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready for a motion, or are we still discussing? Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, so I would like for us to have a little bit of time to chew on this and see what we can come up with instead of suggesting, and or adopting a policy today.
Okay, so the recommendation is that we send, we direct staff to prepare and adopt or adopt a policy. So are we asking then staff, would the motion be to ask staff to go back and incorporate our comments and bring this back for further discussion?
I would say that sounds fair. It sounds like there are some comments coming from the members of the council.
Okay, anybody else want to
make a point of
Councilman Gama?
So when you say comments, you mean written and or spoken tonight? So like if I take a few hours tomorrow to, because this document, you need to spend some time with it.
Which I did. We should have all done that.
I did. Thank you for that. Reminding me to tell you that I did spend some time with the document, but I think I need to spend more time with the document, and I need to think about it. And there's things in there that I would also like to add, suggestions that I think make sense, because ultimately, and I'm going to use a quote from Ted Waldell, and the quote goes like this: this funny thing about better is that we're all for it until it's time to change. And so when making changes is a task, it's difficult. And while we don't have a policy and we want to create a policy, that might even be more difficult than changing something. But yeah, I think that would be a really good way to resolve some of these issues, and then give us time to submit it to the city manager, and then city manager will correlate. Because if I and Mayor Hernandez have the same issues and we both burden the city attorney with it, we're kind of wasting his time. So I would like to rely on the city manager to receive our input and then take it to the city attorney.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we all want to move forward with a policy document, but we need some time to digest this and provide additional comments back to the city attorney or city manager, whichever you prefer. I just want to remind you again that a lot of what you're going to see in here is ways that we should be conducting meetings. It's things that we have been doing in part, but I think it's going to go a long ways in strengthening how we behave and how efficiently we go through our and conduct these meetings. So with that, Councilman Rollins, I see your hand up.
As part of our earlier discussion, as far as putting things on the agenda and giving staff ample amount of time to digest it and come back with a report or an adjustment. Can we make some kind of, can I make some kind of a motion that we have like 1 week to look at it so that we can provide those comments within a week so that staff would in turn would have another week to digest it and come up with a proposed agenda. A proposed policy. I think we should have some kind of time limit to
We should
review
have a
it.
time limit, I agree. So it was 2 weeks, plenty of time to get back to staff for everybody?
Yes,
that
and
be
that
part
would
of- Sorry.
I'm sorry, then if we were to allow 2 weeks, which seems reasonable, then it would be put on the agenda item that, not next meeting, but the following meeting.
Right. Hopefully, depending on what else is planned. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Yeah, could those be those recommendations or suggestions that we send on to the city manager?
I don't understand.
So you know how we would be looking at this document and referring some changes and updates and things that we'd like to see. What I was saying too is that it also then includes what kind of policy we would have in order to get an item on the agenda. So it would be like all comprehensive versus splitting it up.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that. Okay, so who would like to make that motion? Okay, go ahead, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, thank you.
Okay, so let's see if I can sum it up. So I make the motion that the city council would then be requested to submit information to the city manager on items that could be updated on this council norms policy, as well as agendizing, let's see, how can I say it? As well as taking into consideration future agenda items and come back to us with a revised document to see in the near future.
Second.
Madam Clerk, is that clear for you? Did you get that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Good job. Good discussion. Okay, so we are now on to council member reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. So let's begin with Councilman Gama. You want to go first?
Yes. Kind of caught off a little bit here. So I think we have our agenda setting agenda item already taken care of, so I don't have to go there. So I wanted to share with all of you that I've been kind of tracking the dredge process, and there's one more piece of equipment we're waiting to arrive, and that is the dredge. Everything else is set up. The pipes are floating, the connections are made, and today they set up the temporary fence at Hueneme Beach. And Surfrider of Ventura County and myself, we are going to visit Yara Fertilizer tomorrow, and they have agreed to assist us in the placement of a camera. And we are going to document the dredge process in a time-lapse type format. And then we are going to make this available to anybody and everybody who wants it. And it'll be a great educational tool. It'll be a great piece for people to use in classrooms and the like. And it's really exciting. The beginning part is the most exciting part about it, because the beach begins to appear within 48 hours of it dumping into the ocean, and we're going to attempt to document this day by day. So look forward to that. We volunteers since our last meeting in and around the beach area, including Miranda Park, we have picked up a total, well, not exact total, but nearly 1,000 cigarette butts in 2 weeks. So thank you all for that.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Gama. Councilman Rollins.
Okay, well, as a continuation of Councilman Gama's discussion about cigarette butts, I would like to see on a future agenda to staff to develop some kind of a report on the development of a program putting up those cigarette butt stations at both the beaches, the parks, and potentially the city businesses that the Surfrider Foundation made that presentation to us at the last meeting. And what I would like staff to present some kind of report as to the feasibility, how it could be done, where it could be done, because it seemed to me on the surface to be a really good program, especially since we just recently passed the no smoking at the beaches, a place for them to put their butts once they find out they can't smoke at the beach. Along with that line, I would like to, future agenda, I know there was some discussion about it as far as expanding the no smoking ordinance to include the parks. I know that our city attorney said that it was a separate ordinance, that it couldn't be piggybacked onto the one that we did, or at least that was my understanding. But I would like to see that on as in a future addendum where we expand that really good program that we all approved to include the parks. The REACH program, we had a meeting last week. We're going to be in the final phase of adding bricks to the brick program fundraiser. I think there's approximately 16 to 20 bricks that are still available. And so there's going to be a push to do that, and then they're going to close off the brick program. So that's something that you may all want to be aware of. And then finally, tomorrow I go to the Ventura County Air Pollution Board, and they're going to be discussing approving a resolution to, I guess, continue on a program where they incentivize ships, cargo ships, to slow down their speed from 12 to 18 knots down to below 10. That helps reduce the emissions and also the potential of running down a whale. And so they're going to be making hopefully passing a resolution to that tomorrow at the Ventura County Air Pollution Board. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Rollins. Councilman Berg?
Not too much. I have a shout out for our Public Works leader, Don Villafana. I was talking with a soccer coach the other day who practices out at Bubbling Springs, and they've been unable to practice out there recently because of the rather large number of mosquitoes, and they're getting very aggressive. And so they had to quit their soccer practice, find another place to do it. And you might recall, I think we all received an email not long ago regarding a person who was attacked by some wasps out there as well. Well, lo and behold, I took this to Mr. Villafana, and he'd already been in touch with the County of Ventura, the Mosquito Abatement District. Didn't know we had one, but they're on their way out there now, and they're going to be spraying the area down for the mosquitoes, and I'm sure they're going to look at mosquitoes, or at the wasp rather, or if they don't, the wasp are going to certainly look at them. And but they're going to spray out in the area, and then they were already on top of it before I could even get to them with a surprise. So thank you very much for being on top of things like this.
Thank
Point
you.
of order, if I may have.
Excuse me, Councilman Gama, you need to ask to be recognized.
Well, I said point of order. Is that okay?
I don't know, because I was in the middle of talking. I don't know what you said. Go ahead then.
What I wanted to say, Mr. Berg, was I was out at Bubbling Springs Park yesterday picking up some trash, and I saw a bunch of bees buzzing around my head, and I turned around and there's a massive beehive in this eucalyptus tree on the corner of Bard and Park Avenue. And I broke protocol and I texted Gabby directly and she took care of it today. So it may have been bees. There was honey dripping out of this. It was so big.
Thank you, Councilman Goma. I have to say that was not a point of order, but it was a nice story. Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things here is that I want to summarize that the JPIA held their annual conference. It was called Resilient Together. It was a well-attended conference, over 500 members. I think that's a record number, and it was 100% virtual. They delivered it as so you attended and it seemed like you were dialing into a TV program. It wasn't Zoom related. It was really where there was a website and it was seamless. It was really very professionally done. A couple of segments that I listened to was one called Leadership in Crisis. And Bob O'Neill talked about the leader's plan and how we have been a society that is really more just in time kind of projects as well as inventory. And it just really changed everything for us with this COVID situation. And so what to look for in the future and what's really important for communities to be resilient. Another session I attended was called Current Policing Issues. And that was part and parcel to looking at strategies to effectively address then the current policing issues. And it was a panel discussion of several city managers as well as police chiefs throughout the JPIA member agencies and municipalities. It was an excellent program, and hopefully there'll be some takeaways there that we could take a look at for the city. I also just attended the Sister City quarterly Southern California program that was held this last Saturday, and of course that's on Zoom. And everybody really talked about how their sister cities have gone to a Zoom. It's not an easy technology if we're talking about folks that internet is something new for them. And so the places where there's been most engagement, of course, is with students and those kinds of exchanges. So it's been a hard road to pay for sister cities, but they're moving forward. And the exception has been, or the norm has been, that everybody has gone to a Zoom platform in order to communicate and stay in tune with their sister cities, no matter where they are. One of the programs that they recognized, though, was a program that La Cañada had put together with students in their community and somebody from JPL that actually sponsored them. And it was those kinds of programs that really come to fruition and say, this is what we can do for our community. And so, those are those things that we could start engaging in once we have an approval from our sister city, and that relationship that hopefully will get started here in the near future. I just want to also go back a little bit to JPIA. There's an annual meeting, and that's coming up next Wednesday. It's going to be virtual. And of course, there are about 7 or 8 new agencies that have
Just lost your audio, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
So hopefully we'll have a good number representing us, over 100 strong. And and 2 things I'd like to have us take a look at for future agenda. One of them is to address the insurance that we pay, or that the medical retirees pay the city and then we pay our insurance companies, something like that. But I know the numbers keep growing. They are part of the financials that we approve, and it happens to deal with the police retirees. So there's like one retiree that's like $240. There are other retirees that are over $500. And so I talked to our city manager here, and are there some options that we could take a look at to and just get paid? I don't know what the answer is. Wanted to post that out there if you have some ideas. And then the second item I'd like to put on the agenda, and it's probably for closed session, so Mr. City Attorney, you can help on this, is that our city manager has come up on his 6 months. And I think it would be fair to have us propose that there would be a 6-month review, you know, just kind of check in and see what's moving along, what maybe there could be some course corrections, or just a great kind of acknowledgement of what's happened. And I believe that that could be recognized as a closed session agenda item, reviewing city manager. So I'd like to have that posted in the near future for us to start going through that process. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I just have a couple of quick items. I want to do a shout out for Mr. Villafana for conducting the Great Shakeout this year. I look forward to hearing a report at your next opportunity on how it went and how many participants we had in the Great Shakeout. It's just a way to keep it on our radar to remind us that we're in earthquake country and we could have a major earthquake any day. In fact, we had a 7.5 in Alaska today, which generated a tsunami. Fortunately, not for us. The other item I wanted to address is the census is now over. Hopefully we got most of our residents counted. I want to thank Chief Salinas and the Explorer program and everybody who worked on the census, making sure that our community is represented. So I wanted to express my appreciation for that. I had a meeting with the RDP 21 Strategic Planning Group. We're looking at white papers to go to Washington, D.C. in place of us actually going. Well, this would be, our trip was canceled in January, but the white papers will continue to be developed. And one of the areas of discussion was the dredging program. So they're interested in sitting down with Captain Chisholm on the base and looking at ways that we can get the Navy base to be more vocal in continuing the dredging operations, the sand replenishment program, and make sure that they get on board. So I've been working with Gene Fisher on that and trying to set up a meeting of all the stakeholders to talk about where we are. So it kind of dovetails or connects with what Beacon is trying to do as well. So hopefully Councilman Gom and I can work out some of the details and logistics and not duplicate efforts in putting together a stakeholder meeting. So with that, unless anybody has anything else, I'd like to remind the public that detailed information about the COVID-19, our numbers are still going up. We went up about, I don't know, about 10 people, I think, this week with the new numbers here in Hueneme only. So we just want to make sure that people continue to wear their masks. We wear our masks. If we practice social distancing and we wash our hands, the sooner we can move on to the next tier and we can open up our businesses. So everybody's cooperation is surely needed at this moment and appreciated. So for more information, you can find information at the porthuenemeemergency.org website for information on COVID and what's happening there. And our next meeting will be Monday, November 2nd, broadcasted same place, same location. So with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 9:14 p.m. Thank you, staff, for hanging in there with us tonight. Thank you for the support with the audio visual. And thank you, council members, for your support